Hello, Janksters, and welcome to another edition of the MagicJank podcast, the weekly show where members of Team MagicJank get together and we talk about the latest happenings in Magic the Gathering. And we got an interesting one today because we just finished up with the Wilds of Eldraine streamer event, and this weekend, actually, as we're recording this, marks the pre-release in local game stores. So, New set, baby, it's happening. So, I'm Headmux42. And I'm joined today by Carlo Seafair Jr. How you doing, my friend?
Hello. Doing pretty good. Enjoyed the streamer event yesterday. Big thank you to Watsy and the Arena team for that. Definitely a very smooth experience from our end. Got to play with lots of new cards. I personally played all decks that were built by our viewers, so they got to showcase what their brews were, and we had a good time.
I love it. And then we have another host today. We also have HollywoodPizza. Pizza, how you doing, my friend?
Hey, how's it going, everybody? Just hanging out, having a good time. I also enjoyed the streamer event yesterday. It was definitely, always a special thing to do. And yeah, definitely played with a lot of cool cards. And I can't wait to kind of talk about what all of our experiences were.
Absolutely. So before we dive into kind of the meat of the discussion, as it were, I do want to give a huge shout out and a huge thank you to MagicJank.com, the online marketplace where you can buy and sell Magic the Gathering products, sealed products, singles, various accoutrements, as well as merchandise from Team MagicJank. If you actually want any of our logos on shirts, coffee mugs, all that jazz, that is available over on MagicJank.com. We'd love it if you check it out. Yeah, and so thank you to MagicJank for making this possible and giving us all kind of this cool, group to be a part of.
Oh, yeah.
So as we're recording this the Friday. As of this moment, it has been fewer than 12 hours since the early access servers were shut down. I know because I was in the middle of a game when they pulled the plug, as I am every single time they do the streamer event. And I completely understand they get to the point where they're just like, okay, guys, you got to stop. And that's fine. Yeah. I get it. And Carlo, I got to echo your point. This was a really smooth event. It went really, really well. So huge thank you to the Arena team for making it possible. It's a lot of work wrangling that many people together with the intention of showing off these new cards and putting on a good show for people. There's a lot of, it's funny when, some of my members of my chat were commenting on it, if somebody scoops early, that's something that's a big faux pas and a big taboo. And they specifically tell us not to do that. The code of conduct, if you will, is definitely in place. Really all it comes down to is don't BM. Be a good opponent, and if your opponent's popping off, let them pop off and show off their cards. Yeah. It seems very reasonable and totally fair. And if they're popping off with new cards, rock on. Let's see them fire, And I had a great time. And I'm assuming you guys did too. I played so much. It was insane. And I was very fortunate to get a lot of brews in. So I know I have a handful of cards that I want to discuss and a couple of brews that I know I want to get into. But I don't know. Before I kind of just monopolize the conversation and just vomit all of my thoughts from the last, the last 2 days of, all kinds of janky goodness. What were some of your guys' takeaways on Wilds of Eldraine, and what were some of the cards that maybe surprised you?
Yeah, so, first of all, big thank you to Jesse Hill, who works on the Arena team. Jesse actually stopped into my channel and gave away 10,000 gems during the early access event. So big special thank you for that. That's much appreciated. The community appreciates that.
That's incredible.
Yeah, and so we were jamming a bunch of stuff. I didn't play a deck for more than 3 games. We just kept rotating, going through to see what worked and what didn't. There was a clear divide amongst folks who were playing basically meta decks with 2 new cards versus folks who were playing to highlight the new cards. It was interesting seeing a lot of the newer brews. Personally, my favorite card of the whole experience to play with most certainly was the new Hellkite. That is Realm Scorcher Hellkite. It was very strong at 6 mana. It is a 4/6 flying haste with bargain. If you bargain it, you get 4 mana. and it pings for 1 for 2 mana. So basically, you get a dragon, you can deal 2 damage instantly if you're sacking like an extra token or something. If not, hey, you just get a 4/6 flying haste for 6 mana, which is just great. It by far was one of the most powerful cards I felt that you could play with. Whether you were ramping into it or you were just casually casting it on turn 6 after a good turn 4 and 5, it packed a punch. And a lot of what we did was we compared this card to Tyrant of Care or something. I don't know. It's another 6 mana dragon that doesn't have haste but deals 4 damage when it ETBs. I felt that this card was a lot better. Tyrant of Courageous. There we go. Thank you.
Yeah.
From Brothers War. And so we were trying to compare these 2 cards. And in my opinion, the new Realm Scorcher Hellkite is much better suited in this 6 mana position in a card where in a deck where you're just trying to play some cool dragons. So, that was my most favorite to play. I liked how the cards from Eldraine synergized with a lot of cards from like Brothers War that maybe before weren't playable, aka Power Stones. If you had cards that created Power Stones and you needed something to bargain because you couldn't use it, or if my opponent played a Thran Spider against me and I couldn't use the Power Stone, it gave me the sack outlet for bargain. So I liked experiencing those interactions with lots of the cards we played. So yeah, what about you, Hollywood?
I had a lot of fun with the adventure cards, actually. I definitely played quite a bit of games with the Otter, the Viper, the Druid. Ruby was pretty good. Frolicking Familiar was actually surprisingly good too.
Yep.
And of course the Balluna. It just feels like adventures are still like stacking up to how the meta decks are because every single card's a 2 for 1, right? So like a lot of the decks that are actually like existing now don't have access to as many value cards in reality, right? Some of the value cards were either banned or just have been replaced by something else. And right now I think that the adventure cards just seem really powerful. Like the Otter can just get really, really big when you're casting non-creature spells. The Viper can deal like 5 damage if it just sits out sometimes because the opponent's trying to cast other spells and like not dealing with it. It can also bounce like another non-land permanent, I believe. So like you can kind of just like set the tempo up where you can play like Otter into bounce something and then play like a Viper plus like use the Frolicking Familiars ability to deal 1 damage. I think it's like Blow Off Steam or something like that.
Yep.
And there's also like some really, really cool cards as well that we tried out, like the 2-Headed Hunter, which gives double strike. It's another card that just like makes the Otter and the Questing Druid like insane because you can get Questing Druid to like a 5/5 or like a 6/6 and then just like kill the opponent like out of nowhere pretty much. Yeah, I just felt like it was really, really good. Obviously, I just kind of played all the adventure cards there. Balluna was really good too because like at 5 mana instant, you can kind of just like draw 4 or 5 cards. And the game kind of just feels like your opponent can't win anymore because you just drew like 10 spells technically because each one of those cards is like 2. So if you already have like a board presence, then things get out of control. I thought Ruby was a pretty good 2-drop though. Ramp creature. I don't know. I'm sure Carlo, you might have tried it out with the dragon. I'm not sure, but it gets really, really big too, or bigger if you have like a 4-power card, and that's pretty easy in the stack. On top of that, that card also has haste. So most of the time, when you play your little mana dorks, they don't do anything. So coming in for that 1 or 3 later is pretty nice.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that she just immediately taps her mana right away, like you get half her mana cost back the turn you play her. I actually had somebody in my chat point out how nuts she would be with Bard class in older formats.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
That's sick. Anyway, it's like you
Just
cast on a
chaining out
creature,
free
it can draw
cards.
you a card if the Bard class is leveled up high enough, and it nets you a positive mana. That's silly. Yeah. Anyway.
Elemental was really good too. The Hearth Elemental. I don't know if you guys got to play with that card, but you kind of just like would run out of gas, and then you just like redraw 2, pump up all your cards that have like prowess and stuff, and then later on it was just like a 1 mana 4/5. Which was actually quite absurd. Some games. I also played in Boros deck with Pia from Aftermath, I believe.
Yeah.
Played that. That was pretty good as well. Kind of just like being able to get some Thopters, things like that. I was also really happy with some of my other shouts too that I made on last week's podcast, which was uh, the Red Virtue. I can't remember, the name escapes me, but the Red Virtue is really really good, especially in conjunction with cards like the Viper in the adventure deck, where all of a sudden the Viper is just like drawing you extra cards every turn. It's
Yeah,
pretty
Virtual
insane.
Courage. Yep.
There's also the cheeky house mouse was actually really really good too, because I'd just be able to make some cheap threats or make something unblockable. It definitely worked out the way I was like expecting it would. There's just like a lot of good cards I think in this set, and it really feels like the power is like kind of back a little bit. Like there's good removal. A card that I was kind of like not as impressed or still in the middle on is Iron Crag. It really felt like if you draw like two of those, you kind of just like lose the game, because like you don't have like a real card, and turning it into an equipment is like fine, but it's not always going to be like the end of the game. And it also can like shut off cards like Shieldred if you're playing that. So it's not like it was weird, because I liked it obviously to get stuff out quick, but some games it felt like it's like, well, if I had just still cast my cards on time, which I probably would have, it would have still just been fine. So
Yeah,
I don't know if I'm sure. I don't know.
it's one of those cards that unless you're doing bargain stuff, having multiple, like having more than two of it in your deck seems like it could be a real liability, like you're saying. The idea of getting multiples really sucks because it's legendary. You know, with so many other 2-mana rocks, your Cold Steel Hearts or your Mind Stones, like, yeah, I don't know, just get a couple more, sure, whatever. Like, you just keep rock them out, it's fine. But with these, obviously, that's a problem. And yeah, that sword is a non-factor in most games. So... yeah, but at the same time, it's a 2-mana rock that comes in untapped. Like, that seems
Yeah, it
good,
still
right?
puts in some work. Like,
You know,
I don't
ramp to
know
your
like what
4-drop?
numbers you want to play. I think on that card,
Yeah.
I think maybe like 2 at most, because if you,
That
you know, it
feels
makes
right.
it a little bit lighter to like draw the second one, I guess. And I don't know, it's fine, but
Yeah,
you
and
ramping into a card isn't always like a game-ending play. Just like we all know, like from playing Land of War Elves over the years, like
sure.
yeah, you can play Land of War Elves into like whatever bomb 3-drop, but then the bomb 3-drop dies, and it's like, yeah, I guess that's fine. Like, sure, you're gonna try to follow up with some other plays with spending all your mana, but just ramping isn't always the end game, right? You got to play other cards too, and I don't
How
know.
many times have we seen that mono green deck end a game with no cards in hand and like 2 Elvish Mystics and 3 Llanowar Elves on the field, just going,
Right.
where's my action?
Can't even cast the Storm the
Yeah,
Festival from the graveyard sometimes because I don't even have enough mana or
yeah, but
devotion. It's
yeah, you need
definitely
the balance.
happens.
Yeah, finding the
Yeah.
right balance. Yep.
I will
But no,
say,
and Craig's interesting. Anyway.
I will say with this card in particular, I tried it in a few different decks. One was just a big red deck, that instead of focusing on Swiftspear 1, Felden 2, something 3, it actually let me cast like Atsushi on turn 3, and then if you played a legendary creature the next turn, it transformed into the equipment that then made Atsushi a 7/7, and then you could play another one later. We were
You
also
smacked me with
playing.
that at sushi a couple
Well,
of times actually.
I'm listening.
You definitely hit me with the bonk on that one. As much as I talk about Iron Crag not being that good, of course I got hit with it over the head pretty hard.
Yeah, and in the same deck, so this was a deck that Eyelids had submitted for me to play. Went bigger red. We got to
Eyelids,
play.
a pizza box regular.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
winner.
We got to play Thran Spider in this deck, Karn Living Legacy from Dominaria United. We got to play Koth, Charming Scoundrel, Mightstone, Weakstone, and it really highlighted Food Fight, because Food Fight says it's 2 mana, 1 in a red. Artifacts you control have pay 2, sack it to do 1 damage plus
the number of food fights you have
in play.
Yep.
To any target, paired with Mechanized Warfare. So Food Fight is a red source, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So it's interesting. So we played this type of a deck. We ramped up, of course, to that Hellkite that I was talking about, and Iron Crag shined in that deck. I think I played 3 or so in the deck because it could transform into the equipment, or we could do like you just said, just sacrifice it. But it definitely went for the longer game.
Absolutely. And I do want to acknowledge the very pedantic rules lawyer who just began typing a comment into the YouTube video. Food fight is actually not the source of the damage.
Oh, right, the artifact is.
But it's the artifact. Mechanized warfare
Yeah.
still bumps. So yeah, no, it's still good. But I just like, I see you out there. Feel free to leave a comment though. We'd really appreciate it. You know, the engagement does help. But anyway, that's for you, person who just started.
It's been a long day for releases.
You're fine. It's late when we're recording this. No worries.
Dragon,
no judgment. You're perfectly fine. But no, food fight is interesting.
The dragon seemed really strong.
Yeah. No, food fight's interesting. I dig it. It was a weird... That's when I saw one person trying it. I didn't see much else. But there were a lot of interesting food synergies in this set. And I worked with a couple of them, and I found them to really pop off in draft. But in constructed, I didn't quite find a way to make it... You know, I didn't find the sweet spot. But there is one. It is the Night of Sweet Betrayal, I believe it's called. Like, Night of Sweet's Betrayal, if I remember correctly. Nope. Let me find that thing. It is it's a green enchantment. Night of Sweet's Revenge. That's it.
Oh, yes.
But yes, Night of Sweet's Revenge. So
yeah,
it is
good.
3 to green. It ETBs you make a food, and then all food get the ability to tap for green mana. And it also has the ability where you can pay 7, sacrifice it, and then all your creatures get +X/+X, where X is the number of food you control. But you can only activate that as a sorcery. Honestly, I didn't really use it much for that ability. The reality is, though, there was a ton of food, so I was using this and Tough Cookie and Sir Ginger, just create a critical mass of food. By the time I hit 4 mana, I'd be able to drop this and usually get my mana back immediately, just with all the food I had lying around, if I had something to spend it on. And those things ended up making more food. Like, it was able to chain off, and you know, it's one of those things where if you ramp with it, if their goal is to simply just do big ramp things like Goose Mother or some of these other like big X spells, then this card can give you a surprising boost if you're designed to take advantage of it. So I thought that was fun. I'm definitely looking forward to tinkering with this one a little bit more. Yeah. Yeah,
definitely. It's pretty surprising. Like I'm telling you, like it really feels like almost the original Eldraine, where like the cards are really powerful, even like the commons and uncommon stuff. I like. Each card is good. It's like on Eldraine, cards aren't bad. It's like all cards are good. It's like cards with the benches exist. It's just like, wow, this is like the plane, huh? Like,
yeah, I mean that's fair, but at the same time, I don't think we have an Oko in this set. I don't think there's any like
100%. Yeah.
Yeah, there are no busted cards that are going to step up and really. No. If anything, I think Spiteful Hexmage might be that. I saw a lot of people using that, and it worked. You know, that was one that. I was yelling about this one being super powerful, and I saw plenty of people bust it out and do some really crazy things with it. I had one deck. I had a black deck that was all 1 and 2 drops, and it was just hyper aggressive. It wasn't amazing, but it did win some games, you know. And it was using things like Spiteful Hexmage in the mix. It got silly, honestly, because like Spiteful Hexmage on 1, there's so many turn 2 plays with Spiteful Hexmage that become insane. I had one game where I had 3 in my starting hand. And so I played out 1, it cursed itself. Turn 2 rolls around, I play out the second one, it curses the original one. Also, okay, the other curse falls off, I'm just sitting with a 3/2, and then I play another one. I'm sitting here with 7 power on the board on turn 2. Like, yeah, only one of it's attacking, but still, I'm just like... It's silly. You know, it's one of those things where it's like, do you have a 3-mana sweeper? If not, you're getting wrecked, man. I think this is going to hurt. I don't know. This is one of those cards that it gives black that 1 drop. That, like, Evolve Sleeper's not bad, don't get me wrong, but I think Spiteful Hexmage is going to replace it in a lot of different builds. And I did see a whole bunch of people playing Beseech the Mirror. Like, we knew that card was going to be good. And boy, howdy, is it good. Beseech the Mirror is the real deal.
Card, right?
Well,
like you just go get the card you need.
Yeah, I don't know about you guys, but like looking at it, it's very easy to just say, oh, you just grab Sheoldred. And, you know, 50% of the time, absolutely, you certainly can. It's always an option. The fact that that's like the floor on this is insane. But I also saw people grabbing the end off this, no problem. I saw one very janky brewer who I don't remember who it was that I was going up against, but mad hats off. They used this to go grab Vesuvan Duplimancy, which was just, it was beautiful. And actually they had a really cool setup where they used Vesuvan Duplimancy, got it down, used Rat out on a
Get out of here.
What's the name of the dude? The 7/6 dragon that lets you tutor something up and put it into exile.
Yeah.
Broodlord, the Hoarding Broodlord.
Yeah.
So they used Rat Out on a Hoarding Broodlord, made a copy of the Hoarding Broodlord, which then fetched up another copy of Rat Out. They then tapped the rat that they made from the last one to convoke it onto another Hoarding Broodlord and chained it off, and they just got 3 Hoarding Broodlords for free. And then untapped and attacked me with them. It was so beautiful. I was like, I can't even be mad. That was great. Fantastic. Yeah.
That's pretty insane, actually.
And Besiege the Mirror teed that up. It made it possible. It was really cool to see. So these interactions are out here. And Besiege the Mirror got the Vesuvian Duplimancy. It also could have gotten the Broodlord to hand if that's what they needed. Or the whatever combo piece you're looking for. That's the thing. Yeah.
I saw a couple people search up Liliana of the Veil.
That's a pretty good card to just throw into play.
Yeah, they were like, I just need a sack outlet. It can't be targeted removal. And that did it for them. They pay an extra mana and they sacked like a treasure or something. But 5 mana Liliana of the Veil is still fine.
Oh, totally worth it. Yeah. Absolutely. If it's just what you need. Oh, yeah.
Yep. Can you imagine a world where you were still getting Fable with this? Or Bankbuster?
Oh, my goodness.
Or you could sank Bankbuster with a token and then go get a Shieldred. Or go get another Fable.
Yeah. You draw the cards off Bankbuster, then when you're done with it, you sack it to this to go grab whatever. Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Now we're talking.
In a world where Fable and Bankbuster exist, this set becomes even more cracked. To the point where I'm not mad that those aren't here. Actually, I was glad when they got banned regardless, but...
Yeah, it's pretty crazy to think like how powerful this card is, right? Because this card is going to get you your best card. Right, it's either going to give you, like you said, 50% of the time you're going to get your best card. Then the other 50% is, what do I need right now to either excel in the game or like, stop my opponent from like getting too far ahead or winning the game, and even just getting a removal spell, maybe like the end. You're like, okay, I bargained. Go get the end. Okay, exile all their cards out of their deck. All their Atraxes are gone. All their Shieldreds are gone. Like, okay, like what are they going to do now? Right, like it's really really powerful. I think it's going to be really strong still. The triple black obviously means it's probably only really going to get played in like 1 or 2 decks, but being able to get the card you need all the time is kind of proven to be good before. So it's weird because like at a time, like a Bring to Light effect probably wasn't that good, right? When Bring to Light was around, but now, cards are so much more powerful that like, you getting the game ending card you need is so much easier, right?
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. Yeah, no, it's pretty fantastic. This is, and in general, I feel like the bargain cards, the cards that let you sack things for value, it feels like it's always worth it. They're absolutely fantastic. And there's one card that I leveraged quite a bit. It was the deck that I kept kind of like, well, we got 10 minutes. I'll just get one more game in with this. It was very much that for me during this early access. Was actually a deck leveraging Lich-Knight's Conquest.
Oh yeah.
I know it was what
you destroyed me with that. It was great.
I sure did. And then hey, your Bunnicorn took vengeance on me afterwards though.
Yeah.
But this card is just, it's multi bargain. You get to do it multiple times and then you get mass reanimation.
Yep.
And I think this card is going to be very, very powerful, and I honestly would not be surprised if this sees some competitive standard play. I don't know if it's going to be a top tier meta deck, but you're going to see it a non-zero amount of the time on the ladder, I think, because I was able to tee up turns tee up setups where like on turn 4, I was grabbing 2 Gruff triplets and an Atrax out of my graveyard.
Oh, jeez.
And it wasn't even that hard is the crazy thing. Like, it reads like that should be really tough to set up, but because we have so many sagas that just like incidentally mill and create tokens. We have your Teachings of the Kieran, for example, mill 3, rock out a token. It itself is an enchantment. You've got Modern Age, which is a saga that you're more than happy to sack to something, and it helps you fill your graveyard. Like, that stuff's out there right now. And in this same set, we also have the Collector's Vault, which is like
Reckoner Bankbuster at home.
I mean, it's funny you say that. Yeah, I mean, a little bit. But it's funny because I see it lets me draw a discard and create a treasure token. I see, like, the chunk of Fable that I miss the most. Yeah. That's why, So, you drop this out on turn 2, turn 3, you activate it, you dump your reanimation target, and you create a treasure. So now you have 2 things that can be bargained. If you have anything else, any other bargain material out there, you can use the treasure token to tee it up on turn 4. Like, the possibilities here are kind of insane. And we also have Scrapwork Mud as well, which I was leveraging in that deck. And it was not hard to just throw little incidental pieces of value that happened to kind of just set me up and then knock it out. And I found 90% of the time, if I could find, like, especially if I can find multiple copies of Gruff Triplets. If you haven't reanimated
That
2
card
Gruff
was
Triplets
ridiculous.
at once, holy cow, feels great.
That card just felt like so strong, right, guys? Like, like every time I played that card, it just felt like my opponent was like, I'm not too happy with this.
Yeah.
Like, as soon as they kill one, both of them become 6/6s. They kill another one. Now it's a 12/12. Yeah. And it's like, yeah, that seems pretty good. And like being able to reanimate it was like, yeah, that seems pretty busted. I'm glad I didn't really get to see that. I didn't really lose against the Liches, but I also didn't get to play against you, so I feel pretty lucky. Just because your deck sounds like it was like way scarier and trying to do way more powerful stuff. Yeah,
it was pretty nasty, and I did in building that deck. So we talked about wanting to showcase the new cards. At the end of the day, I definitely wanted to showcase the new cards, and so when I was deciding what reanimation threats I wanted to put into it, I put in 4 Gruff Triplets. I wanted to like lean into that because it was the best one from this set, but I did put 1 Atraxa. I did put 1 Atali. I put 2 Toxrill, which that turned out to be a bit of a dick move, if I'm honest. But and then I also put Ghalta and Mavrin, just because like it's fun and nobody's gonna see it coming, and it's a card that never really saw the light of day. So I figured, let's give it a shot in here. Why not? Right. And it's one of those things like. In that game, it's very clear, like, yes, this could have been an attraction, but this is way more fun. Like, it's, know, and so I was trying to be good-natured about it, but I did pull Toxrill out against a couple of rat decks, and they were not happy with me, which is fair.
I would imagine so.
But at the end of the day, with Gruff Triplets, even if you're playing it fairly, even if you're just casting it from your hand, the reality is there were so many games where I found myself going up against an aggressive deck, whether it was one of the black decks, one of the red decks, the rat decks. There were a lot of variants on those running around. The white decks rocking like the Bunnicorn and whatnot. There were plenty of games where it's like, all right, I am dead next turn. And then top deck the Gruff Triplets, slam it, and all of a sudden I've got 3 bodies that can block all of a sudden. Like, the combat math completely changes, and I am not dead yet. And being able to reanimate it was also great, because I could make sure to block with the card Gruff Triplets so that it could die so I could bring it back. So, yeah, the stuff you can do with that card to help kind of get you back into a game is very real. Like, this is where I want my 6-drops. Like, it's really nice. Yeah,
card's super powerful. I think green definitely got a boost in this set. It feels like all the green cards are like 2-for-1s. Between this card and the card that has some black to it is the Dread Knight.
Yep.
The Mosswood Dread Knight. That card was like just as good as I thought it was going to be. But it really feels like green is kind of back a little bit. Definitely has a chance against some of the other decks that are kind of like around, especially, red's going to always feel like a good matchup, but the black decks, I think you can kind of like almost go over the top of a Shield Red now with how many kind of like powerful cards there are. I had a lot of fun with the Turtle too. Tortoise is pretty good. You can like lead off with some games where you have like Topiary Stomper into Tortoise, and then you cast like your set, like you could almost cast like your 7-drop the next turn or something like that. Like it's
just about silly.
Or Gruff. You go Gruff after that. It's pretty ridiculous. Titan was still good too. I think Titan Industry can make like a comeback just because like there's so many artifacts and enchantments running around. You can just like pop something, still get like that 7/7 trample, and the token's good to bargain too. I didn't really get to do the Thunderous debut as much as I wanted to, unfortunately. It didn't really line up for me, but I think green cards are potentially making a comeback. Even the Virtue's scary. Like when you cast the Virtue, like if it doesn't get destroyed, you're gonna make like 20 mana.
Speaking of green, we did play a really good green deck on stream for the streamer event, and it was more of a low to the ground, quick kill type of a green deck that took advantage of older cards like Patchwork Automaton, Simian Simulacrum. We even got to play some Halo Hopper, but Ginger Brute is back, and we got to do some crazy stuff with like Teething Wormlet and Elvish Archivist. Elvish Archivist is new.
Card is insanely strong. That card is like nuts. Honestly,
we got to play some Sir Ginger, That card only costs 2 mana. And then we got to really highlight Ozolith the Shattered Spire from March of the Machine in this deck.
Okay.
So we got some counter doubling going on. We've got Gingerbrute that can become basically unblockable for 1 mana. And we got to really build a big board. And if we had another artifact like ETB, such as a food token, we got to play Tough Cookie in the deck too. So our foods became 4/4s, which became then larger. So it was a pretty cool, quick green kill deck. I'm considering playing this for Fight Club because it's green in nature and that's my color. We might be checking this out. But yeah, I definitely love this more low to the ground version. Gingerbrute. I love Gingerbrute. I just there's something about a Gingerbrute into a Simian Simulacrum and making it unblockable and coming in for 3, Yeah. So I loved those types of cards. Green is back.
Okay, now we're talking about Gingerbrute. Card's great. I think we can all agree. Like, no notes. We love it. I'm curious though. How do you feel about the new art? As compared to the old art.
I like it myself. It looks cool. I think they're both 2 different things, but I kind of like this colorful one a little bit more. Gonna have to maybe see the foil to kind of like judge.
Okay, fair. Okay. I just asked because the old one, like the previous one, is almost feral and it's like aggressive and it's gonna come get you. And there's something that I really like about that, whereas this one feels like it's running for its life, which maybe is a little more fair, because it's a gingerbread cookie. But I kind of like the one that's gonna mess you up. That's kind of my preference, I don't know.
That's what Tough Cookie's for.
That's fair, actually. Yeah.
Good point.
fair point. Because that guy's not messing around. Yeah, good stuff.
But I guess like other cards I want to talk about from decks we've played. We tried building like a Jeskai Spells deck a little bit. That was able to play like Narset and Lighten Exile from Aftermath, and play cards like Heartflame Duelist. Heartflame Duelist is from Eldraine. You can cast it for 3 mana, and it's an instant that just says deals 3 damage to any target. That's Heartflame Duelist. And then the creature side says instant and sorcery spells you control have lifelink. So you get to play your favorite Lightning Strike, your favorite Play with Fire, your favorite Stoke the Flames. And hey, if you want to play some Monastery Mentor while we're at it and make some tokens for that Convoke, sounds pretty good to me. Or if you don't want to do that and you just want a 3/1 body for 2, you can certainly have it your way. So, I really enjoyed playing with this card because it helped to enhance some of the other cards that already exist in terms of spells. And then, Narset, 3, game 3, worked out pretty well.
Yeah. No, that sounds really excellent. And Heartflame Duelist, this is one of those where I only went up against it once, but it was in a moment where my aggressive opponent had gotten me down to 3 and I stabilized and I thought I was okay. And because of that adventure, I was not okay. It's cool stuff. I like this. I mean, this looks like an efficient, I don't know, it gives me Firesong and some Sunspeaker vibes, which I mean, it's obviously a smaller kind of scaled down variant, but it's being able to give lifelink to all your instants and sorceries. I mean,
and from a limited perspective, to me, this card is great because any red deck wants the 3 damage for 3 at instant speed as a solid removal spell. And there's so many cards in this set that create treasures also, or that filter your mana that you will eventually be able to cast it off of Adventure as the creature side if you want. But, 3 for 3 seems great.
100%. Yeah, I feel like splashes in limited would not be that hard in this set. And given the multicolor adventures, you're definitely going to want to do that a fair number of times. Yeah. Well, and it's funny. It's funny that you're talking about prowess. And Pizza, you mentioned a card earlier that I wanted to touch on. I want to go back to it a little bit if you don't mind. The Elusive Otter. I think that card does have prowess. It is shockingly good. Because you talked about going over the top of Sheoldred with it. And I did exactly that at one point. And and it was lovely. So part of the typing, everyone. There we go. Yeah, so the Elusive Otter, the creature on this is a 1/1 for one. It's just a single blue with prowess, and creatures with power less than Elusive Otter's power can't block it. Like that. That alone, that creature is worth the price of admission. I mean, that if you're doing Spellslinger kind of things, that feels like, I mean, in a lot of decks, that feels like a better Delver, you know, in certain contexts. And it's funny because it's going to be in Standard at the same time as Delver. And I'm seriously considering doing some kind of Spellslinger deck. And during early access, I did a deck with the Otters. I did the Elusive Otter and then the Frolicking Familiar just because I was like, they're 2 Otters and they both care about spells getting slugged. Yep. So I don't know, let's give it a try. Let's see what happens. And it wasn't necessarily themed around adventures necessarily. It was just themed around spells. And I used a lot of like pump spells and cheap burn spells alongside these. And then the other card that I leveraged that was critical, it ended up being Teamer. The other one was Winterthorn's Blessing. Like, I had one person reanimate an Atraxa on me, and I Winterthorn's Blessing locked it down and beat them down for 2 turns and 1 around it. It was awesome. And there was another time when I got the Elusive Otter down, and I did the 1 mana, like, Ferocious Might or whatever from the set that gives it +2/+0 in a monster roll. And then I think some other burn spell or something of that nature, but the Elusive Otter was a 6/6. And then I had my Frolicking Familiar, which was flying. And I was able to send them both in just untouched because my opponent had, I think, a Graveyard Trespasser and a Sheoldred down. Yeah. Well, both of them had lower power than the Elusive Otter. Neither of them flew. And so I was like, yeah, you have a good board, but I don't care. I'm just punching straight through it. It was awesome. So this little guy is in combat. Like, if you pump it, it becomes unblockable. And its adventure pumps it if you draw one.
Yeah, that's actually like the biggest key, honestly, is the fact that like the other copies of Otter make the Otter better. And on top of that, like, what's really funny, I still think about adventures, is like the game of Magic feels very situational, right? A lot of the time. And it's really funny that at the weirdest keys, these cards I would never see playing constructed, a sorcery, tap out, put some plus and pulls and counters on my creatures. Like, that card would never get played by itself. But because the front side of this is like this crazy creature, like the added bonus of having a spell on the other side is just like amazing. And Otter is like the best example of it. Like, this card's cheap enough to get played in other formats, right? It's just a 1-drop. You can like chain out some burn spells, chain out some free spells in Modern or Legacy, and kind of just like go to town with it, right? Like, it's a pretty nutty card. I'm not sure. It's tough because in Standard, you're facing against cards like Cut Down, Go for the Throw a lot, and the things that make Delver good are Daze, Force of Will. We do have Spell Pierce. So there's still some cheap counter spells or some cheap quote unquote snakeskin veil effects, even like the green one that gives it like a roll. So it has ward 1. So you can kind of like play your Otter on turn 2, protect it. Now it permanently has ward 1 as well. So then you can kind of like keep it going and like maybe hold up some counter spells, start swinging. And there's probably some auras or something maybe that draw you some cards. Like there's one I think from Capenna, right? That if it's like legendary, it gets +1/+1 in ward or something, I think maybe.
Yes. And I remember. Yeah, I want to say Compulsive Research. Is that right? Or
no, I can't remember what it's.
Anyway, but I know the one you're talking about. Yes.
Yeah.
You see it in the Ivy decks a lot. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that definitely, like, all these cards are definitely get played with Otter. Obviously, you can play like Swift Spear, Otter, and Delver in a deck, and I feel like that's sounds pretty good.
Yeah. Well, honestly. And think about this with Tyvar Stand as well. It's like additional copies of Grove's Bounty, but it also protects the creature. Like there's silly things you can do with it. Yeah.
That's so important because Standard isn't rotating. You need to make sure you're also playing cards that protects it against Cut Down. Because unfortunately that card gets to stick around rather than rotate out of the format, which pushes cards like this. I don't want to say it pushes that out of the format. Obviously, there's plenty more testing to do to see if the card is worth it to play or if they're going to play it in that type of a shell. Like, hey, maybe you do just slam this in the Ivy decks with Venerated Rot Priest and the Drake and the Sovereign Diplomacy if you're feeling frisky. Like, you could do that, but you got to make sure that you have that protection because those really good black spells aren't rotating out of the format. So I don't
That's
know.
why I think like this
I
card.
usually am optimistic, y'all, but
Yeah.
I'm sort of not totally, because I know what still exists that shouldn't, because they didn't take, when they designed Wilds of Eldraine, it was not taken into the fact that we'd be in this extended standard.
Yeah.
And I think we see that with some other cards like Memory Deluge and the new Memory Deluge and Wilds of Eldraine, right? Like we know that card would have been rotated out, and here was like a replacement for it. But
yeah. The one that I think is the funniest, they just straight up reprinted Disdainful Stroke. And like I know that has limited implications, but like it literally was going to rotate when New Capenna rotated out. And so they were just like, no, we want to keep that one around. It's like, well, this is awkward. Yeah.
I think those are cards. Those are cards though that are just always kind of going to be in standard. I like how Negate has become a mainstay. I think Disdainful Stroke is just a mainstay from now on.
Yeah, and I'm cool with that. There are a handful of cards that, like, honestly, it's funny. We were talking about Sleight of Hand. I think it was either last week or 2 weeks ago, and like it kind of, I had a second where it's like, wait a minute, Opt isn't standard legal. Like, well, how is Opt not standard legal? Like, it's just well, we have Consider, so it's just not, you know, but certainly could be. And you know, that's one of those, they could print that into every single standard, and I wouldn't mind. You know, those little bread and butter kind of utility pieces. And yeah, I feel like Negate and Disdainful Stroke are very situational, you know, and we need good counterspells. Like, we need good playable counterspells. And narrow counterspells like those are kind of exactly where we want it to be, especially if you get 2 mana. Like, if it's going to be a 2 mana counterspell, it's got to have some restrictions on it, you know, to make it fair. And I feel like those two just got it right. So, keep them coming.
Speaking of 2 mana counterspells, there's a deck that definitely blew me out quite a bit, which was the Fairy deck.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if you guys ran into this, but the 1-drop 3/3, like I thought was good, definitely smacked me in the face quite a bit, especially when my opponent had 2 of them down, and they had pretty much countered or thought seized everything that I had in my hand with the new 1 black discard spell, which is literally like just such a
thought seize at home
card. Yeah,
Thought seize at home. Yeah.
That card was strong.
Scour or whatever.
They play like Sleep Curse Fairy, counter my spell, and then Thought Seize me. And then I'd be like, wow, I just lose the game now, I guess. It's like, all right, can't do anything. And then obviously they play like some other fairies on top of that. Or some of the decks were actually just like straight up more controlling, where they only played like Sleep Curse. They played like a couple Shieldrids. Definitely like some interesting versions of the fairy deck, I think, out there.
Actually, I gotta give a shout out to the Darkstream, actually, competitor at a lot of pizza box tournaments. I got paired against him the first day, and he was running a fairy deck, and he was running like Talion and Talion's Messenger. Like, he was going all in on fairies, and I didn't stand a chance. Like, just like you were saying, like, man, once, like, if there was open mana, whatever I was going to do was going to get blanked, and then I was going to get smacked for more damage next turn. And then I was going to play something, and it resolved. All right, great. But wait, there's this removal spell that I didn't account for. Oh, crap. Well, that got blanked too. Yay. Like, it was brutal.
And Ward 2. Ward 2 is serious. Like, that was the main problem against this card. Is like, it's like I could tap out and then still get counterspelled, or it just felt kind of rough. Like, in 3 turns doesn't seem that long. Or they play it, you don't do anything. They spend 2 mana, tick off 1 more, then tick off 1 more, and then now they can already start to come in. Like, I think this card has some serious implications, only because it really triggers all of your other fairy cards. I think that's really, really important to have like a really good 1-drop early for that deck. Besides that, I don't really think there's that many other 1-drop fairies that are good, but is there one more?
Well, no, not necessarily.
There is.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you. Fairy fencing.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, this card's good. Yeah.
If you have a fairy online, this thing is busted.
But this is like a extremely strong removal spell, either at 1 mana or more. It just kind of starts to get out of hand pretty quickly. I lost to this too, where it was like, oh, I think I'm fine. I was like, maybe they just have like a go for a throat, or like, you know, maybe they just like end up like having a cut down they can't cast. It's like, no, they just have fairy fencing that's just going to kill.
And there were a lot of different fairy builds, I think, that I played against and that I played. And hey, I'm the Dimir guy. I love playing flash spells. So whenever I can play cards on my opponent's turn, it's great. You know, you could straight up have played like a 24 land deck with nothing higher than CMC3 and play Kaito and play Liliana the Veil, and then you're playing the rest basically fairy cards. And something I was missing, even though it's been in New Capenna, was having the ability to play Fairy Vandal alongside a Fairy Mastermind, and I think this new sort of Fairies build allowed for the melding of those two cards to be played in the same deck now, where it didn't necessarily before. And that's because you could play Likeness Looter, which is a new card that also costs 2 and taps to draw a card and discard a card. Or hey, is your Fairy Mastermind in the graveyard? Do you want your Likeness Looter to become a Fairy Mastermind? Well, you can pay 2 mana all at sorcery speed though, and get your Fairy Mastermind back on the board. You know, and I was playing some builds with Halo Forager from March of the Machine to reanimate my removal spells, right? So you play that on 3, take a removal or the discard card out of the graveyard, pay the extra mana for that. Boom, there you go. That gave you something to do in the long term. And Spell Stutter, I mean, like, I couldn't have asked for a better 2-mana counter spell. You know, it's great as Quench, and it's better as Mana Leak plus some after you've got your Flash fairies on the board. So, you know, sign me up. This is what I'm about. I can tell you I'll be jamming some fairies / new Dimir build in Standard. These cards are right up my alley.
Yeah. No, I mean, when you're doing the fairy thing, if your deck is moving, Spell Setter is just it's counterspell. It's one of the blue counterspell. I mean, like, how much does this need to be? You know, in most situations, I mean, I don't know about you guys, but in Standard right now, I'm getting blown out by, you know, Make Disappear a lot already. Granted, I'm trying to resolve 7 drops, so I'm kind of unique in that regard. But at the same time, like, Quench is a good playable card regardless in a Standard type environment. It just is. And so when you have Quench with upside, it's going to be playable. Like, it's going to be a decent playable card. I don't know that Spellstutter is going to straight up replace, you know, Make Disappear unless somebody's going fairies. Like, if somebody's doing fairies, this is 100% better. It's not close. But I think in a lot of the, like, Dimir or Zorius, like, tempo or control decks that exist today, I think Make Disappear is probably going to remain the one. But I don't know. Although, now that I think about it, the Dimir deck is rocking the Fairy Masterminds right now, and the Fairy Vandal is some really tasty synergies. I like that. That might catch on. So I don't know. Like, the Dimir deck might end up having enough fairies to justify switching to Spellstutter.
I think you just play it. Maybe Make Disappear. Maybe you play like 4 Make Disappear, a couple of these. That way you just like max out on like all your counter spells. So you're just playing it all flash all the time. Like, it's kind of funny that like there's so many different versions of Dimir now that you can play, and it was already like one of the best decks in Standard, and it kind of actually gets like some different cards and makes it like a different deck, I guess, if you want to play the fairies. But still pretty interesting. Like, I really think that like it's just so many powerful cards. Even like this card's like a common. And it feels like it's just like, oh, we finally got Mana Leak back in Standard. That's like what it feels like. It's pretty incredible. Like,
give us Mana Leak 2.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah, Mana Leak 2.
Mana Leak did nothing wrong. Yeah.
Mana Leak 2, Electric Boogaloo.
Very cool. Yeah, good stuff. Let's see. So I know we touched on the ones that I wanted to touch on. Honestly, this set has a lot going for it. So were there any cards? Oh, you know what? There's one that we haven't touched on today that I definitely want to cover because I saw it a ton. And I played it a little bit, and it was good. But I want to get your guys' opinion. And that is Charming Scoundrel. So
yeah, I didn't know if this card was good going into this. But, you know, whenever a red card has this many options, and one of them is making mana, I was like, that seems like a good card.
Yeah.
Talk about another card that got me from turn 2 Scoundrel, turn 3 at Sushi.
Exactly.
You know, that's what I found myself using a lot of it for. What 4-drop can I play? It let me play Cough a turn early too. If you are playing red-black, it lets you play Shieldred on turn 3, which is scary. Sign me up. It's I want everything in this card. And I don't even know that creating the treasure token is like the best ability, because being able to rummage is also fantastic.
Yeah, looting,
Mm-hmm.
getting a 2/2 haste, staying on curve. Like this card
The
is
Wicked
like
Roll token
ultimate.
essentially is giving one of your creatures +1/+1 for the turn, which is a fine ETB. So I think,
yeah, I mean the floor on this card is a 2/2 haste that when it dies pings your opponent for 1.
yeah,
That ain't bad, you know. And if you need card selection, you need to fill your graveyard, you got that mode. Or like just being able to create the treasure token, being able to ramp. That seems to be the name of the game with this set, is ramp at 2. Like it feels like green is not the only color that can ramp at 2 mana anymore, and that's a big deal. And in fact, I would argue that, I mean, Charming Scoundrel does it. I mean, we have 2 mana dorks in green right now in standard. They see no play. Like I run into Scrap Corger occasionally,
yep.
but like.
It's always Stomper into Invasion of Zendikar.
Yeah, exactly.
Like that's what it's been so far, and
Yeah,
that gets you Atraxa or Rex or Titan of Industry after that happens.
Yeah, 'cause like Stomper's the good one, and you're gonna be playing your Triomes in the those first couple of turns anyway. So yeah, you don't need to worry about ramping into 4. You know, because when you ramp on 2, you have the opportunity to ramp up into 4, like you say, like your Atsushis, your Atraxas. So if your bomb is at 4, then running 2 mana ramp is worth it, whereas running 3 mana ramp is not. You know, that's something that I hear a lot of Commander, commentary talk about. It's like, okay, what kind of mana rock should you run? It's like, well, look at the mana cost of your commander. You know, how expensive is your commander? If the mana value is 3 or lower, you probably don't want to be running 3 mana rocks as a general rule. You know, like they're not really going to do much good. Or at least not in as many situations. But regardless, 2 mana acceleration is a big deal. And the fact that Charming Scoundrel drops, creates the treasure, they can die immediately. You still have that treasure. Whereas if I drop a 2 mana Scrap Corger or a Loam Speaker, if it dies, I got nothing. Like I have nothing to show for that turn. So yeah, no, I honestly think this card is absolutely fantastic. Yeah. And another thing I'm just curious.
Never dead.
Yeah, right.
You're always going to want an ability on it.
It's never dead. Yep, 100%. Oh, also, looking at the text, discard a card, then draw a card. It doesn't say discard up to 1 cards if you do draw a card. If your hand is empty, if I'm not mistaken, that's just draw a card.
Yep.
Yeah, 100%. Yep.
So,
yeah, this card's super strong. Card's never
crap.
dead. Card is literally never dead.
This card is busted.
Yeah, card is like
never
dead.
And I don't think that there are many cards in this set that are busted, and I will wholeheartedly believe that Charming Scoundrel is one of them.
Yep.
I think this is the card that we'll see outside of standard play, whether that's in Pioneer, probably too weak for Modern, but Pioneer, it's right up that alley.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the red-black deck in Pioneer is practically what the unbanned version of the standard deck was.
Yep.
And you can still, for some reason, play cards that should be banned in Pioneer for 100. You know, so I think this card might be better than Blood Tithe Harvester at 2.
I was just thinking
that might be
probably
controversial.
is.
And if it is, put it in the comments and don't forget to like and subscribe. But like, I'm pretty sure that this is better than Blood Tithe Harvester. And yeah, I'm aware the cards do 2 different things. One card gets you Shieldred on turn 3 when you probably don't have an answer for it, and the other does not.
Yep. I mean, I think it really comes down to how aggressive is your deck and how badly do you want the 3 power on Blood Tithe Harvester. Because I think we can all agree Treasure is better than Blood.
Yeah.
Like, it just is. And also, Charming Scoundrel has this little benefit that I notice a lot with, like, Ambitious Farmhand or Spirited Companion. And I know I've talked about it, too, where, like, if that's on the board, they get their value on the ETB, and I don't want to spend removal on it. Like, that feels like a massive waste. Charming Scoundrel 100% has that going for it. Like, the moment she drops, like, well, you already did your thing. Like, if I kill you now, it doesn't, like, what good is that?
I did my job.
You know? Unless they put the roll, unless they're going for the Wicked roll, in which case, okay, then you can get some value. But otherwise, like, doesn't matter. So I don't know. I think this card is this card passes all the sniff tests. And I saw a lot of people. One of the things I noticed was I actually did go up against mono red, like paint by numbers aggro burn that we've been seeing in on the standard ladder for months. I went up against that deck a number of times in the streamer event, with this being what appeared to be the only new card they added. And like everything else, it was just Kumano faces Kakazan into Charming Scoundrel with Phoenix Chicks and all that jazz. And
I don't think this is a mono red card though. Like for fast mono red.
I mean, yeah, Super Blitz mono red is like, you could argue that it's not quite there because it's, you don't necessarily want to ramp. In a 2-2.
It helps with the curve. Yeah, it helps with the curve a little bit.
Honestly, I still think I think it's really flexible. You can put it just about anywhere, But at the end of the day, this is that card that I think a lot of people use to justify playing just a meta deck and just add this and be like, "What? There's a new card in it," and I don't know.
It's a human too.
It is a human
creature type.
Human rogue. Not that the red rogues have been a thing, but there were a couple out there in the past that
What's funny is this and what's the Robber the Rich?
Yeah.
They're both rogues. And
Robber the Rich is,
Yeah, Robber the Rich, and Robber the Rich specifically cares about rogues attacking. Yep. So there's a synergy there that's pretty cool.
It's funny, the good red 2-drop comes back.
Right? Yeah.
This time better. It gets played in like every deck.
Well, and obviously the allusion here is also to Charming Prince. Like there's clearly a match where it's like, okay, it's EDTBs, does 3 things, it's a charm, ha ha ha. Yep. Like, and but I gotta say it's funny looking back on Charming Prince. Like I remember thinking that card was busted, but these modes kind of outclass the Charming Prince. I mean, the blink effect on Charming Prince was really where the money was. If you could abuse that, then okay, now we're talking. That thing can get out of hand. We've all seen that loop with Yorion to do degenerate nonsense. So, like, I'm not saying Charming Prince is a bad card. Don't get me wrong. But when your choices are like gain life or scry versus rummage or make a treasure, like, I don't know. I think I prefer the Charming Scoundrel. I do. I just do.
I wonder if we'll get the other ones, or if we get the blue one, the green one, and the black one. That would be interesting.
Yeah, we could have the blue one would be the Charming Noble, and I don't know. This could be fun.
Charming Beast. Eldraine. When we go to the set with the wacky races, and one of the planes we have to race through is Eldraine, because Oko needs to meet their son.
Sure.
But Sun went through an Omen path at the end of I don't know how this works, but you know what I'm talking about.
I have no idea how this is going to work, but who knows? They can do just about anything with the story these days. Yeah. But no, I think this card's awesome. Also, just want to throw it out there. I can't be the only one. Okay, I don't know if either of you guys know the streamer Bloody. She did a lot of Magic. She also does some Pokemon stuff. She's very prolific on Twitter. In any event, every time I look at this artwork, it looks like her invitational card. Like, it looks exactly like her. I think it is shocking. Anyway, just putting that out there.
There's a card that I actually want to talk about that I think is a almost unanimous slam dunk, and that's Up the Beanstalk. This card is literally just as good as it reads. It is a replacement card, and if you play any other 5-mana card and you draw one more card off of this, you get your value off of it really, really quickly. I had a game where my opponent had a shielder that had 2 Up the Beanstalks, and I literally didn't care. I was like, I'm just going to draw all the cards and just destroy you. I think this card is going to get played in Modern. It has a chance to maybe even get played in Legacy, where you can play it and you can force will and draw a card. I think that's pretty strong. And yeah, I mean, obviously you're like, hey, I guess I'm just going to play my Up the Beanstalk, and then I'm going to play Fury for free. I'm gonna get back.
I'm gonna evoke Fury and get my card back. That's stupid.
Yeah, and I think I'm just gonna draw some cards too while we do it. This card just seems really strong. Obviously, in the Omnath decks, it's good. Solitude, another card you're just gonna want to cast with this. And Standard, there's just a lot of other cards, right? We have Ashiok, we have Shieldred, we have just all kinds of cards to Fairy. There's all kinds of obvious green cards. This card's green, so I mean, every green card that's good is either like a 1-mana 3/3 or like a 6-mana make like 3 tokens like the Gruff or whatever the Griff. Like all these cards I think are going to be super, super strong. I think Up the Beanstalk is. I think this is like the best uncommon probably in the set potentially. Potentially.
I mean, big ramp is something that we see the domain decks that are curving out. The problem with those, although Leyline Binding, all of a sudden dropping for 1, that triggers this, so that's disgusting. Yeah, there are a lot, honestly, of 5+. If you're doing big ramp, drop a Traxa, draw 1 more card. Why not? Yeah, this has the potential to get absolutely silly, and I'm wondering if there's potential synergy with this and Ginger Taxes from March of the Machine, because he also cared about 5-drops. Then maybe this is getting a little too cute. Maybe that's just trying to find too many synergies. But I don't know.
You mean that it's sounding like some jank?
Perhaps a little. And we're cool. We're pro jank here at the MagicJank podcast. Believe it or not. Yeah. So yes, I think up the Beanstalk. I can see the synergies with all those free spells that you get in like Modern and Legacy. So yeah, that like opens this up to really insane nonsense in those formats. Especially where like drawing one card. I mean, if those one cards that you're drawing are your Furies and your Force of Wills and whatever, you're gonna have a good day. Or things you can pitch to those, like and whatever it may be. Whereas, yeah, in Standard, this is going to be a little harder to break, but I can see it. You know, I can see somebody finding a way. And, yeah, I'll probably tinker with it. This is one I didn't try. I didn't test this one.
Yeah, it was just absurdly strong.
But
Like,
looking
every
at it,
time
I feel like I
played it,
should.
I was happy. I always wanted to get it down because I knew once I got it down and I cast any cards out of my hand, it was probably just going to end the game because if I drew like 2 or 3 cards off of this, like, imagine like a 2-mana draw 3. Like, you would definitely play that.
All day.
And that's definitely how this
green? Oh
card
my
feels
goodness.
like sometimes. Yeah, especially in green. I think it's strong. Like I said, I think it's the best uncommon. It has one of the best chances of getting played in every single format.
You know, I didn't realize when I was thinking about this card, I thought you only drew on the spells. I did not realize that it draws on ETB.
Oh yeah.
It cantrips?
Yeah,
what is
replaces
this cantrip?
This card is nuts. I'm telling you, the fact that it replaces itself, you get like, I'm telling you, 2-mana divination, right? You would play 2-mana divination. Like you play this, and then you get one more. You get play any one 5-mana spell, and you already got your value off of it.
Mhm.
On top of that, this card goes in any commander deck that your
Pretty
commander is
much.
5 mana. Because if it's more than 5 mana or more, you're gonna draw a card every single time.
Or something that just synergizes with enchantments, right? Like
Yep.
replace itself, get some constellation
Yorion.
triggers off.
You can play this with Yorion, and
Oh my goodness, yeah.
it not only does it trigger off of the Yorion coming into play, or the cast trigger, you also get to blink it, and then it draws more cards. Like
yeah, you're Orient, the new blue virtue. You got
Need more cards.
Cavalier
Elishnorn, Mother
Thorns,
Machine. All like anything that cares about
Karn
ETBs.
targets. Like
Yeah,
this
all
card's
this
really
stuff.
strong. I'm telling you, this card is gonna be insane.
This is going to be one of those cards that in a month people are going to be all like, "Why is this random uncommon $5?" It's like, well,
Well, it draws you like 4
because
cards.
it's like, well, because modern players want it, commander players want it, standard players want it. Like it's because everybody wants it. That's why. It's funny every now and then you see that with actually I remember finding out that like Deadly Dispute was like a $5 card at one point, you know, as was like Stormkill Artist, also like incredibly expensive because it like is the only card that does that thing, and that thing is really awesome. So yeah. Anyway, and this has the potential to be that. Like this has the potential to 100% be that. So yeah, fantastic stuff.
How do you guys feel about Bramble Familiar? That was another card I think going into this event. We kind of wanted to see how another 2-mana creature that has the upside of essentially turning into a what was the green card from Zendikar? Though I'm talking about the dual face card. It was either 7 mana. Timber Symbiosis.
Symbiosis, yes.
Yeah. So this is kind of like a turn Timber Symbiosis. At home, essentially not giving you the free mana as being a land, but giving you kind of like the ability to reanimate by discarding a card, or ramping you into like these other 4-drops that we talked about. Where I feel like a Golgari deck with this Mosswood Dread Knight, Shieldred. I just feel like there's got to be a Golgari deck. Terra Sunder, like there's so many good Golgari cards overall that I think there's got to be some value somewhere. Yep.
Glissa's nuts. Yep.
Glissa. Yep. Glissa's insane.
Yeah.
This also, if you play this on turn 2 and it doesn't die, it also gets you turn 3 Shieldred.
Yep.
I hear that's good.
Gets you like so many. Gets you Tortoise. I was playing this on turn 2 and playing Tortoise on turn 3, and just being like, yeah, this feels good.
That's what I was doing too. I was doing the time I played Bramble Familiar, it was alongside Tortoise. It was in the Blossoming Tortoise deck, and I was doing the Draconic Destiny combo. That's the funny thing. This set in this early access, there were at least 2 infinite combos that I saw multiple people go after, and that particular one, you take Draconic Destiny, which is a very forgettable aura that gives a creature fire breathing, but it's colorless fire breathing. Well, the Blossom Tortoise says land creatures or abilities on land creatures cost 1 less to activate. So the moment you put Draconic Destiny onto an animated land, it has the ability pay 0, give this creature +1/+0.
Damn,
And
you
it
monster.
also have haste and flying.
I
Over
died.
here just like one-shotting people.
I was
Oh my
dead.
God.
Absolutely
Yeah, a little bit.
100%. I faced
And-
this morning, and
You,
I died.
Yeah, it's fun. I gotta say, it's really cool to pull off. Yeah, one of the highlights of this early access, I went up against Strider Stone, and he had like, at one point he had Junji and the Ledger Shredder online, and a couple of other pieces. He was trying to do some reanimation stuff with some of the new cards, but he was just beating me. He was just beating me up. I just didn't have a board state. I wasn't quite getting there, and I just managed to squeak out this combo. And I popped into a stream afterwards and found out that was the first time he'd seen Blossom Tortoise, and it's like, yeah, oh yeah, that's how that works. Yeah, I was 100% dead to rights the next turn, and it was actually Bramble Familiar that set it up. I had the Tortoise online, and I had cast Awake in the Woods. So I had a bunch of little 1/1 land dryads, right? Because all of those are land tokens. And so I cast the Fetch Quest, the 7, drop mode on Bramble Familiar, and it milled a Draconic Destiny, which came out attached to one of my dryads, and I was able to swing it. So, yeah, I think Bramble Familiar is, if you're doing big ramp stuff, especially if you're doing any kind of combo shenanigans, that require a creature, enchantment, or a land, this gives you those at the top end, which is really solid. So yeah, I like this little guy, and he fills your yard. I like things that fill my yard.
Speaking of lands, we've actually gone almost this whole time without talking about the creature lands.
We have,
and I think that the creature lands right now are pretty huge. There's games where the creature lands won me the game by themselves. They're really important. What I actually like about them is that we're kind of almost used to seeing like middle mana cards be a little bit bigger, and all these creature lands are a little bit smaller. The only one, obviously, you show was it Restless Cottage? That one's
Restless
like the biggest
Cottage,
one. But the Bivouac was really strong.
Yep.
The Is It one, Scries, which was really powerful. Didn't get to play the Orzhov one because there's not really like an Orzhov deck, but yeah, I mean they were strong. I mean that card makes a food and exiles a card in the graveyard. It's like almost better than the Hive of the Eye Tyrant.
Right.
Menace makes a big difference, but yeah, Bivouac was insane. You just put a counter on something. It's just what is it, Luminarch Aspirant on a land? It's the card's strong.
Yeah, those were my 2 favorite to play for sure, Bivouac and the Cottage. I did try the others. I didn't find them to be as good. I also really didn't have a chance to highlight the Simic one that becomes the 5/5. But for sure, the Cottage, like you said, it's great. It's a strong powerhouse. It can't just easily be blocked. And putting the counter off the red-white lands is just really good.
Oh yeah, I did get to use Divine Stock in a couple of decks. I had one of my Blossoming Tortoise builds, because of course I had multiple, leveraged like Slowgurk, and that's the other. If you have Slowgurk and you hit the Fetch Quest with the Bramble Familiar, that slime gets swole. But I found Restless Vinestock actually provided a ton of reach in those games. It allowed, it was basically just kind of wrath insurance. If your opponent did manage to deal with your board, it's like, well, I still have this 5/5, so good luck dealing with that. It gives you that extra punch. And there were a couple of games where, man, just being able to animate this and slam twice made the difference. Going up against, especially the like sorcery speed control that you see a lot with white these days, with the obvious exception being Wandering Emperor in that build. But when a lot of the removal is sorcery speed, these creature lands are huge. It's like they can sit on a handful of wipes. I don't care. These are still going to keep punching. And I found Vinestock to be pretty good. Like it's really big for one of these, which is great.
Yeah, it gets bigger with the Tortoise too. And the Tortoise also makes the ability cost less. So, 4 mana 6/6 is pretty good.
It's not bad.
I still feel like they're all really strong in their own way. I think it's going to be interesting to see what decks they help, right? Because we know that all these creature lands are definitely going to give a lot of these decks that don't have more late power. Maybe like I said, the Pia deck that I played earlier, the Simic ramp decks, like all these decks that didn't exist because maybe they were weak to like a board wipe or something. Well, they get a little bit better because they have a creature land now. And they also have a lot of cards that are 2-for-1s, like we talk about the Tortoise. I know I bring up the Gruff, but the Gruff's just like so good at the Moss. All these cards that just like 2-for-1s all the time. Like, and a lot of the cards we're talking about still green cards. I think green's back. I think this is the set where green really makes a comeback. and even if it's not like stompy beatdown green, I think there's enough powerful value green cards that might be worth the splash.
If anything is going to give green a boost in standard, I think it's this set. Yeah, we've got the tools. So recently, the biggest knock against green, the biggest issue with trying to play green right now is just how efficient removal is, and that hasn't changed. But the fact that we're talking about creature lands being impressive, or the fact that we're talking about green draw engines being impressive, ramp payoffs, these kinds of things, well, I mean, yeah, your opponent can have all the 1 and 2 mana removal they want. We can work around that. I feel like up until this point in standard, green has been in a situation where it's like, I'm going to play a 3-drop and hope it survives. Then I'm going to play a 4-drop and hope it survives. Then I'm going to play a 5-drop and hope it survives. And like, yeah, each of those cards individually are good, but they rarely survive. So the deck just folds because it needs them on the field in order to do their thing. It's funny. I feel like green is being held back right now, but it's so close. It is so close to breaking through.
Yeah,
and
it's
it is
really,
going
really
to
close.
And I hope this set gives it the edge it needs to, at the very least, show up as a support color in a couple of decks. Because
I think
it's
we
not
might
even
see it
that
be like
at this point.
kind of like the Simic, kind of how we used to have with Hydroid Crisis, where like
Mm-hmm.
the cards were all just like value cards. So like you weren't necessarily like doing one thing better than the other. It was just the fact that like you just had a lot of really good cards that, once again, they're all like 2-for-1s, right? They're going to outvalue your opponent.
Mm-hmm.
We talk about like so much of the format and standard has been, oh, I just play Shieldred, and if they don't have an answer, then that's it. Well, what if like every one card you're playing is like a Shieldred? And that's kind of like what this set felt like, where it felt like it was like so easy to kind of snowball the game when you curved out.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and it's just so important to do that. And, definitely a few of the most important things in Magic, the basic concepts are card advantage and like the use of your mana. And I think that this set has a lot of both, right? It comes in with like food, adventures, the creature lands. It comes in with all these cards that spend your mana efficiently to the point where, like, if your opponent isn't really having as many options or kind of slowly running out of gas, you kind of just like run them over and you're not even doing anything what seems like that crazy. Like I talked about the otter and being able to pump the other otters and a card that's like quote unquote constructed unplayable. I mean, it doesn't matter. It's on another card, 2-for-1, like every time.
Yeah, the other thing I really like about these creature lands is, and I think Ham touched on this point, it makes like your board wipes worse, your opponent's board wipes worse. So where like the white, blue, or just like straight mono white, like mid range that has a bajillion board wipes, and they got another 5-mana one, Expel the Interlopers in this set, which I don't think is playable as long as Sunfall exists in the format, but it just really speaks to getting around those cards. It lets you control the board, even if you have just spot removal spells for what they have. And it's like, if they don't have Emperor or like Faithful Absence, your creature land is probably getting in there. And you could just keep reusing that as a threat every turn. I mean, hey, the red blue one only costs 2 mana to activate. It's cheap. We already pay 2 mana for Mishra's Foundry in those decks, and granted it's generic mana or colorless mana, and so you could put that in any deck. I mean, a red blue like flash deck, or most of the time you're casting cards on your opponent's turn. I mean, this seems like a great card to play.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Good creativity at 2.
Yeah.
If you really want to be interesting about it. But I think I agree. Like, they just give all these decks so much more reach. And you're right, like the board wipes is the most important one, right? Where you have a lot of farewells, sunfalls, all these cards that make like the ramp decks, the white decks good. And getting these creature lands into the decks that need them is just going to be so vital. And it's funny because none of those decks are going to play these. So it kind of works out because, these, because they're dual colored, they aren't going in every deck. Whereas like the Hive, the Den, since they were like one color, you could almost get away with playing them in a lot of multicolor decks, whereas like these, you're specifically having to be like, okay, if we're going to play this, then we're probably playing Grixis. Okay, if we're playing the Golgari, maybe we're just playing Jund instead. Maybe, it's not as insane. It does help with the mana, but I'm not sure. It's not going to, I just don't see them in every deck, right?
Like, now, where I think, we would have seen them in every deck
if rotation happened.
Yes.
Then we would have had to rely on them for mana fixing
Mm-hmm.
in the dual color decks that Standard probably would have reverted to.
Yep.
So, rather than play like 4x of this card in your deck, where in the past you would have played like 3 to 4 Raging Ravine when that was in Standard, you're probably only playing like 1 or 2 of this type of land in your deck, and it's probably over a pain land, to be honest. And that means your deck probably is moving a little bit slower than usual, especially on some of them like the blue-green, the Restless Beanstalk, cost 5 to activate. Right, so like you're talking like almost Hall of the Storm Giant type mana cost to activate it, or what's the other one? Cave of the Frost Dragon, right? Cost 5 to play.
Oh yeah,
or to activate,
easily the weakest in that set. But yeah,
Talonade from Days of Old.
Yeah, exactly that. So I like them. I'm gonna enjoy seeing a few of them like in a deck here or there, except the Orzhov one because I think that one's not playable. I hope to eat my words in a couple weeks, but they're okay. They're okay for now.
Yeah, they're not as impactful. I think that it's so funny that like obviously we were probably going to see what happens when there's not a rotation, but I think this set is highlighted more because we know that this set is powerful. Like this set definitely was going to be the cornerstone of Standard for at least a couple more sets, maybe even, right? And instead we kind of it comes in, it just adds some cards, maybe makes 1.5 new decks, 2 new decks maybe in the meta if we're lucky. It's a shame because this set specifically, I really love this set. I love the set so much, and I really want to see a lot of the cards get played, but I think that what we already have in Standard is going to overshadow some of these new cards coming in, just like we're talking about right now. Like it's just the power levels. Obviously the best cards always go to the top, but I think that because there's already so many more powerful cards in Standard, these cards have to live up to that. And I think that this set isn't as powerful as what some cards are in Standard. I think it's just like probably like a 7 on like the scale, maybe 6.5, like a 7 probably closer to that. Where like you have like we have like Beseech, Mosswood, which is like a fair card. We have like the Dragons, another top card. It's like a fair card. Yeah, and we talked about Beanstalk, which is like just uncommon. So it's like there's a few good hitters, but I think like the Shieldrids, the Wandering Emperors. There's a lot of these cards that we've been seeing for a while are still going to be some of the best cards in the format.
Yeah,
and some of these cards kind of like get hurt, right? Like a Wandering Emperor wouldn't be around, so you're right, Carlo. Like you would safely be able to attack with your creature land, but you can't even do that. Really, it's rough.
Yeah. I think Wanderer leaving would have been a big difference. It would have made a huge difference. Yeah, it's funny when we look at the rotation. I've heard a lot of people talk about how just as long as Shieldred and Cut Down are in the format, or they weren't going to be rotating anyway. The reality is like Cut Down, Ossification, Go for the Throat, Shieldred, the Apocalypse. None of those were going anywhere. We would have lost things like Tenacious Underdog. We would have lost things like Wandering Emperor, Wedding Announcement. A lot of the Kamigawa sagas are utility pieces that slot into certain decks. So like we would have lost a lot of that stuff. I think the biggest impact, to your point, is the Triomes. The Triomes and the slow lands. Like the mana fixing would have made a huge
This is the
difference.
best mana potentially. It's without fetches. This is like some of the best mana we've ever seen. Like
I mean, since the Shocks last rotated out, for sure, no question.
Yeah, the Triomes are just like insane. Like honestly, the Triomes are what makes Standard kind of like this enigma, because like you don't have a reason to not play like a 3-color deck. Right? That's kind of like what it feels like. It's like you may as well just play a 3-color deck. It's just good to play the best cards in those colors.
Yeah, and half the time if you're going to be playing 3, you might as well.
Chance.
If you're playing 3, you might as well splash one more and put a Trax in there. Because let's be honest, that's how it goes.
May as well play the 5th one. May as well play
the 5th one.
Just,
I don't know, whatever. And then you can get Leyline Binding. You can just whatever. It's fine.
Yeah.
It's kind of silly. And as long as you balance how many of each land you have, like you can easily run 5-color good stuff in Standard right now. Like that's not impossible. But if you take the Triomes and those slow lands from Innistrad out of the format, that stops being possible immediately. And on top of that, we have some really powerful domain payoffs. We have things like herd migration. We have leyline binding. We have these domain pieces that are seeing a lot of play at the top tables, just because of the triumphs. Like leyline binding on turn 2. We have a flash Oblivion Ring that you can cast for a single mana on turn 2. That's nuts.
Sign me up.
Yeah, I know, right? And hey, it's here. We got it. And and the thing is, it's funny because leyline binding wasn't going to rotate, but the moment you take the tri-lands out, that card becomes significantly worse. All of a sudden that domain, that cost reduction payoff, you got to work for it a little bit. And one of the cool things about these dual lands that we're talking about, so the creature-based dual lands, they aren't typed. And the pain lands, which would be, the pain lands and the fast lands are kind of the best we've got if that rotation were to happen. None of those are typed. And so if you're doing domain, you kind of then get pushed into using either awkward tap lands from Dominaria, that common cycle, or basics. And there's a lot of good basic ramp out there. There are a lot of great ways to, fetch up these specific basic lands, put them into your hand, or put them directly onto the battlefield. But those force you to spend cards, and you got to spend some time and effort to make it work, which that you should have to build your deck in a way to synergize with your things, I think. But in any event, so that's the biggest thing about rotation, is that I would have loved to see the mana bases get kind of a kick in the teeth. I mean, we would have another 2 months where mono black is just 80% of the ladder, but it is what it is. Yeah. In any event, so I think we covered a lot of ground. At the end of the day, I mean, what are you guys' just kind of overall impressions on the set? Like, yay, nay, thumbs up, thumbs down? Yeah. And what are you guys' plans once Tuesday rolls around and it launches on Arena?
I give it a pretty big thumbs up. I think it's really good. I think I like the flavor. I love the art in this set. I'm glad to be back in Eldraine, in all honesty. And I'm really hoping that these Eldraine cards show up and gives the standard cards that exist right now a run for their money. And I already know there's going to be cards that exist in Eternal formats. And I think this set just has everything for everyone. It has a special sheet where you can get like doubling season, cards like that. And I think it's going to be interesting. I'm interested to see kind of like what some of the special sheet does a historic myself. I don't really play that format, but I like looking at it. And I'm excited to see what happens. I mean, we're finally getting some new cards. It's been like 2 or 3 months, it feels like, since we've gotten some new cards. And I really miss rotation, though. It's the one thing that I'm bittersweet on, is we're getting a sweet set, but rotation's not happening. So I would like to probably give the set more praise, but I think because rotation's not happening, I think it's like, I don't know, like I said, it's probably the set's probably like a 7-ish itself. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, it's up there. It's got flavor and it's got some powerful cards, but it's not like, I wouldn't say it's like the first Eldraine at all. The first Eldraine like was legitimately like one of the best sets ever on like power level, and this set's pretty good. But I compare this to more like Kamigawa.
Yep.
Okay. I think this set's more like Kamigawa.
I would agree. Taking a look at it as a set that would have existed in a different standard rotation, I would give the set about an 8.5, because we would have seen a clear slowing down of standard, minimalized mana bases, back to the basics, dual color decks, let's go. I think in total, I'll still give it about an 8, because I know what cards I want to play with in the set, so I guess I'm kind of biased on that, and I have enjoyed playing the limited format, both on the streamer event and the pre-releases I played today. Were pretty interactive games, and I'm always a sucker for a good limited format. So, I would say it's pretty designed well. I love the synergies of the new cards. I loved playing with the new cards yesterday. Got 2 more pre-releases this week to play. So
let's go. Good luck.
Yeah, it's gonna be fun. So I would rate it pretty high. I think I would still give it a general 8.
Love it. Very cool. And I'm with you guys. Yeah, definitely thumbs up. I really enjoy it. I wish the rotation was happening, but it's not. Here we are. And I don't know about you guys, but I'm going to plan on making the most of it. You know, we have a lot of older cards that never really get a chance to shine. Maybe now's the time. You know, Blossoming Tortoise and Slowgurk, they get to go together because of the lack of rotation. Your Fairy Vandal can be in your, in your Dimir Tempo deck. That wouldn't have been a thing. So, I don't know. We'll find some silver lining, and we're going to have a good time with it regardless.
Yep.
So, definitely come follow all of us, by the way. We're all streamers, by the way. I don't know that we've made that abundantly clear, but we all stream on Twitch.
Sure.
Playing magical cards over of the arena variety. All of our links are in the description, so definitely drop us a follow over there. We are going to be doing all kinds of fun, janky nonsense. I know for myself, I plan on doing a lot of draft when the set first comes out, just because that's the most cost-effective way to flesh out the collection. And then, I'm going to be cracking open a bunch of packs, and I'm going to do my best to brew with as much stuff as I can get my little grubby little mitts on. Yeah. Well, and so with that, let's go ahead and take this on in for a landing, because we've been at it for a while. Funnily enough, for us, this is actually a relatively short podcast at almost an hour and a half. But yeah, I feel like we've covered a lot of good ground. This has been great. Thank you so much, guys. Before we go, is there anything that you want to plug or let people know about?
Yeah, I mean, hey, I'm C5Redo_Jr. on all social media platforms, not just Twitch, but I do put content out on Twitter, on Instagram, on TikTok, so on and so forth. So if you want to check that out, please do. Like Cam said, the links are in the description below. And listen, Team MagicJank, a lot of us are coming to MagicCon Las Vegas. And I don't know how much that we've talked about this yet, but MagicJank has its own creator table section at MagicCon Vegas. We've got a nice 2-hour time slot on Sunday. So make sure you look out for us and come party with us over in the creator arena at MagicCon Las Vegas.
Heck yeah.
That's right. I can't wait either. You can find me twitch.tv/HollywoodPizza, PizzaBoxMTG on YouTube. On Twitter, you can find me at PizzaGoy or at PizzaBoxMTG. We have a tournament this Sunday. I do 3 a month, all free to play with cash prizes. This Sunday is going to be Explore. There's going to be a link down below as well. Going to have some awesome commentators, including like Hamhawks, who always does a phenomenal job.
Oh,
and, it's just always a good time. The tournaments are free. It's really competitive. On top of that, it could potentially get you qualified for our championship tournament. It's going to be our first tournament that's part of the championship series. So, every season that we do the Pizza Box tournaments, you're going to be able to qualify for these Jankathons. And the first one's going to be October 22nd, and it's going to be standard format. So, it's going to be still a relatively fresh format. We have one standard tournament this month. So, definitely get in on it. They fill up pretty quickly, and they're always just a really, really good time.
Love it. Yeah, thank you so much, gentlemen. And thank you, dear listener, for tuning in. It means the world. I've been Hambox42 on all the places. Again, links in the description. While you're down there, like and subscribe. We appreciate you very, very much. And a huge thank you to MagicJank. If you would like to interact with us, feel free to jump into our Discord. We have a podcast question channel in there where you can go ahead and talk to us directly. We'd love to see you in there. Or you can tweet at us at MagicJank with the hashtag JankMail, and we will, we will respond to those questions on air. So yeah, again, thank you so much, and we'll catch you on the next one.